Welcome back to the class, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about mods, but in a little bit of a different light than normal. This isn't going to be a video about how to mod X, Y, and Z characters. Rather, this is going to be a way that is not only going to help you organize your mods better, but it's also going to save you a lot of time. So a few disclaimers before we get right into this. Number one, this doesn't require any specific tool. I know there are a lot of good mod tools out there, no shame on them in any shape or form, but we're trying to make a video here that every single person out there can use, so you don't need to buy a subscription to anything or learn how another system works. You can do all this in-game using the specific mod filters that CG has allowed everyone to use. Secondly, this is not a farming plan. We might make that at some point, showing our strategies where we actually get our mods, but this is going to be focusing on finding and making sure that we're using all of our current mods correctly, but also slicing up the ones that really hold the most potential, so you don't ever have to keep going into Grand Arena or Territory Wars or whatever it is with kind of the insecurity of, I think I have good mods, I just don't really know how to use them properly. So first things first, we need to determine where our good mods are. So we're going to be focusing on 4 different filters today that each do something different. The first one is what I call Better Home. You can name it whatever you want. The whole purpose of this one, and I click on this probably once a week. Again, the goal here is automation. We don't necessarily want to be constantly combing through all of our mods, making sure that we have all the good ones covered. We want one button that can just tell us instantly, are you using all of your mods and all your characters correctly? And that's what this one is meant for. Also, by the way, the correct way to probably watch this video is to have 2 devices, one to play the game on and kind of follow along, and one to actually watch the video, but you know, each their own. So what we want to do here is we want to click on only unassigned mods. The goal of this filter is to find all the mods we have out there that might not be being utilized to their fullest extent, aka not even applied to a character. I want to specifically click on all of these up here except the arrow. The reason why, I realize there's a more nuanced conversation about using non-speed primary arrows. The fact of the matter is most of the characters in the game want a speed arrow, so we're going to, for the simplicity's sake, just be using these 5, and the outliers we'll leave for another time. We don't need to put any of these in because we're looking for any mod with good speed, and we're also going to leave all the primaries blank, but we do want to make sure that we are putting speed as a secondary. And then what I like to do to try to find all the mods that can be good for me is I will put speed here, and I will put, it needs to have at least 3. I don't care that much for this filter about the average slice quality, because at the end of the day, a 12 or a 13 or a 15 speed mod has that amount of speed regardless how good its potential is. We're not really looking for long-term potential for slicing just yet. We're just trying to find a mod that should be equipped to a character. The at least level 1 doesn't really matter, any rarity, and then any tier, and then default sort by speed. And once we filter our mods this way, we're going to get a list of things here on the right hand corner of our mod screen, and you are going to need to know your roster a little bit. I don't know everyone's individual mods, or rather even how many teams that they need to have going and how many good mods they need to have out there. But what is the magic number for me? The magic number for Calvin Austin's account is the mod has to really have at least 15 speed. I don't care if it's 4 hits, 5 hits, 3 hits, doesn't matter. But it needs to have at least 15 speed here to really be of any use. And there are obviously outliers to that, ones that have really good offense secondaries, or maybe a mod that is good for a slow character, but those are, again, we're looking for the majority here, not the outliers for this. So I can sit here and comb through kind of the first couple and just to see if, you know, like flat health on tenacity, not that great. There's some defense here. There might be some potential here, but for the most part, I don't really care too much about that, because for my roster, for something to be really get a lot of worth out of it, I need to have more than 15 speed secondary. For different accounts, it might be 10 speed, it might be 5, it might be 20. I don't know what your magic number is. That's something that you really kind of have to tell by looking at your own roster. There are a few different ways to do it, but depending on how you have your characters laid out, it might be consistent and it might not be. So that's really how to use the first one. So Better Home, again, if you want to see what the exact things are, go back in the video and watch it. I don't want to take too much time up here. And then just go and immediately look at the top mod in the left-hand corner. And if that has broken the speed threshold for you, find a place to put it. And once you do that, we can go ahead and move on. So that's how to find all the good mods that you're not currently using. The next one is to check 6 6D slicing, or actually 6E slicing, let's go in order here. The point of this filter is a lot of times we start to accumulate materials and then we just have this instant need to want to burn them to take a mod up to the next level. But oftentimes we can fall in the trap of just upgrading whatever new mod we get or whatever one that we first see. And we really shouldn't do that. We want to try to find out there what has the most potential. Mods are a long game and also a game of numbers, so we can't just do it really willy-nilly. We have to try to find out what has the most potential and really start to bank on it. So for 6E slicing, we're going to leave these first two blank because we're really looking for any mod that has a good speed secondary on it. I also don't really care about that. We want to put speed, and we want to make sure it has speed checked here. And then these two are important. This is where we're really going to start to separate from our last filter, and that is we want to have at least 3 slice count, and we want to have at least 60% on average slice quality. This one is really important to not go back on. We'll talk about this a little bit more when we look into the 6D slicing, but we don't want to be doing long-term investments in mods that just have a low potential threshold. So that's important to get there. We do want them to be level 15, Mark 5 and A, just because we're specifically looking which ones to take from 5A to 6E. So after that, we can filter our mods and we will get a whole new collection of what we were different from what we were seeing before. It's important to note that we don't want to not get the not unassigned, unaligned. What I mean by that is make sure this up here is unchecked. And now my goal is I want to look at all these mods and see which ones have the potential to be taken up to the next level of 6E. And typically my threshold for this one is actually going to be 16 and above, because one of the reasons why I know that 15 is bad for me is because when I start to look around, I've got like, oh my gosh, like 30, okay, the list is actually a lot bigger than I thought it was. I have a lot of mods in here that can be taken up, and I really want to be focusing on the good ones. So as soon as I get a 16, I know that it's immediately better than all of these, and I can take that up. There are exceptions to be made every now and then, and you'll see that these mods don't really fit them in all that great of ways. If I get, for example, a tenacity set with a tenacity primary, that might be worth taking up. Or if one of these had like a potency secondary on a potency mod, or even like a really good combo of like defense and % health as a primary that I could take up. Good combos are also worth making exceptions for every now and then, but for the most part, that magic number for me is the 16th threshold. Again, for every player out there, it's going to be different. Try to find the mods that are going to consistently fall into that threshold for you, and not just open it wide and start upgrading, you know, just whatever you have out there, and then never having materials to upgrade the good stuff when it actually does come in. So that's essentially how I find my 60s. Again, outliers, they always exist. Next up is finding what of the mods I've already taken to 60 for whatever reason. Maybe it was for a pilot, maybe it was through this means, maybe it was a really old one, is to go do 6D slicing. And this one is similar, but different, as I guess everything is. So one of the big things that's going to change here is I want to do equal to 4. And the reason why is I'm trying to look for all the mods that are almost maxed out with 5 hits, because if I can find those and get them there, I'm more likely to hit a really good speed number like 25 or even somewhere in the lower 20s. So making sure it has 4, and then again, we want 60 percentile. You really don't want to go back on this. Even if you have a ton of materials and you don't have that many mods and you're wanting to upgrade things, just try to hold on for the most part. And then important to also put at the very bottom here, B, C, D, E, and then go ahead and sort by speed. Again, looking for mods that can be assigned. And when I filter this, you'll notice that I'm being responsible, I guess, and I have upgraded every single mod in this part of the screen. So let's say you're in the exact same situation I am, where you've done this. If you haven't done this, by the way, whatever mod pops up here, these are the ones that you should be slicing to get further and constantly farming those materials, and really until they're done. If you are going to want to get rid of all your materials, it's burned a hole in your pocket, one thing you can do, do not go back to the 40s. Again, we don't want to open this up and start looking at mods like this and trying to slice them and then getting a 3 and just putting a huge amount of investment into a mod that at most was only going to hit like 21 or 22. We want, if we're going to be putting investment into these, we want to be putting into ones that have a higher potential than that. So what you can do, instead of dropping down to 40, is you can actually drop down to 3 slices. And this will show you a collection of mods that has higher potential while it is a little bit farther away. And I actually, for myself, I wouldn't recommend really taking any of these mods up, just because other than the fact that they hit speed, they're really stinking bland. Again, I really should have had these in the 16% or 16 speed area to be able to upgrade them. where they're at right now really isn't great, especially because there isn't a lot of good other secondaries or really even good primaries on these. Like the Scion mod, like I've got flat health and I've got some crit chance here. That's not really, I mean, percent defense would have been a lot better than either one of those. My Radis as well, I guess those are some okay secondaries, but these are all health sets too, which are super common and just overall not that valuable. But what's interesting is when I do go down to the second one, you'll find, and this is probably the best example of this, if you go back down here, you'll find this BT1 mod, which I just absolutely love. Number one, it did get really good hits on speed. It's in the 80 percentile area, which is nice, and one of the reasons why I wanted to take it up further. It, however, didn't ever hit speed again, but what the other stat that it did have on it that was really good, and one of the reasons why I was tempted to upgrade it in the first place, had crit chance on it. And now it is a crit damage primary, crit chance set with almost 10% crit chance as a secondary, and then also, while low speed hits, really good quality ones. So if I ever want to upgrade this mod later, it's now isolated to just these three stats, and the speed is already going well, so the chances of me getting a higher potential out of this, not just for crit chance, for speed, is even greater. So that is one thing that you can do. Again, if the materials are really burning a hole in your pocket and you're wanting to use them, do not take the potential down, just take how far away they are from greatness. So that is going to be the 60 slicing. Now, last is going to be for calibration. This might be one of the more important for a lot of people out there, as it's one of the newer mechanics that we have in game, and it's going to be somewhat similar to the other. So again, we're going to leave the first three filters here blank. We're going to go down, we're going to check speed, we're going to hit 4, we're going to hit equal, and again, at least 60%. You could actually, for those of you who are just starting to do this, you could probably leave it at 80%, and I'll show why we don't have it currently there. And you can also put, you want to put default sort by calibration attempts, not by speed. So we hit filter mods, you'll see that I only have 3 mods here, and I've actually maxed out the calibration on them. And this is just really sad. I tried to slice these 6 times, or 5, or whatever it is, and it just kept not hitting the last stat on these 23. So that wasn't fun for Calvin. But what I have been doing now is I've gone down to the 60%, and I have all these mods now that I'm just systematically going through and upgrading them. And you'll notice the ones at the bottom I've already upgraded several times, like this Ahsoka mod. We've upgraded, I think we've tried to calibrate it 4 times. We've kind of missed every single time, which is annoying. And then at the very top, these ones we've only done twice or so. So I just go through this, and then once all of these pass their 4 mark, once they all do eventually become 3s, then I'll just recycle through. And I typically try to start with the faster mods first, but really, I mean, we're gonna go through all of them at some point, and then whatever mods instantly come in here are the ones that we upgrade next. So if I get a new mod, and let's say it is a plus 22 and it's never been calibrated before, it would probably be at the top of this list, just because it would have a 6 here because we never calibrated it, and we would be able to immediately start investing to make it even better. So that is, I realized it was somewhat of a complicated and nuanced video, and there is a lot more to be said about getting other types of stats, but ultimately, speed is still the most important thing, even with the newer teams coming out, not being entirely focused on it. So let me know what you think of the video. Let me know if we should do a greater, wider mod series about how to farm, how to sell, and all that good stuff. But until next time, stay awesome.